Okay, welcome back. We are back in our Bible study series, The Day of Atonement Fulfilled in 70 AD. This is episode 2. We're going to look at the scapegoat. Was it Jesus or Azazel or Satan? The purpose of this study today is to examine the origin, meaning, and the identity of the scapegoat in Leviticus 16. This is very important to moving on with the rest of the study. I wasn't planning on doing this video this early, but in the series, however, it became obvious to me that we need to get this issue of the scapegoat kind of straightened out before we go on with the study. Otherwise, the other episodes aren't going to make sense. So let's do it. Here we go. So the background on the Day of Atonement, also known as Yom Kippur. I'm not going to give too much detail here. I'm sure you're probably familiar with it, but on the Day of Atonement, 2 goats were presented before the high priest. 1 goat was for the sin offering, and that goat would be killed, and 1 goat was released into the wilderness as what we call the scapegoat. How they determined which of these goats was they cast lots before the high priest to determine which of those 2 goats would fit be the sin offering and the scapegoat. So fulfillment of these, it is universally, and I put a question mark here because I never want to assume that every Christian believes this to be, but we'll say it's universally understood that Jesus definitely fulfilled the role of the goat for the sin offering. I mean, he took our sins upon himself, died for our sins, rose again. Again, I haven't met any Christian who doesn't agree that Jesus fulfilled that role as a sin offering. However, there are 2 theories or 2 camps within Christianity regarding the fulfillment of the role of the scapegoat. So 2 theories are this, one is that Jesus fulfilled the role of the scapegoat, and 2 is that Satan or Azazel fulfilled the role of the scapegoat. These obviously are 2 completely opposite interpretations, and I think it'd be very helpful for us to be able to determine the true interpretation and true fulfillment of the scapegoat. So this is just my initial reaction. I remember when I was first got saved, I was in a church, and at some point I heard the pastor teach that Jesus was both the sin offering and the scapegoat. And just right away, I remember that just kind of didn't sit well with me. I was a new Christian, so I didn't really question it, but I knew it sounded kind of strange how you've got 2 goats and you've got 1 person, 1 man, Jesus Christ fulfilling both of them when they've got 2 separate destinies, so to speak. So, and also my most recent experience, even as recently as this week, but even more so in the last few weeks, I repeatedly I've been exposed to Bible teachers that are saying that Jesus fulfilled the role of both the goat for the sin offering and the scapegoat. And again, it's kind of just stirred something up in me. I think that's kind of what was the impetus of the reason why I've started this particular study right here on the Day of Atonement and the scapegoat. So let's examine it. So the word scapegoat appears in 3 different verses in the Bible, and these are all in Leviticus chapter 16. And as mentioned in the previous episode, Leviticus 16 gives all the details as to the ritual that was performed on the Day of Atonement. So I'll just read the verses real quick here. Leviticus 16:8. Then Aaron, that's the high priest, shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord and the other lot for the scapegoat. Next verse, Leviticus 16:10. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement upon it and to let it go as the scapegoat into the wilderness. And finally, Leviticus 16:26, and he who released the goat as the scapegoat shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. So I've got a heading here, the problem with the translation of scapegoat. So today, when you and I hear the word scapegoat, we think of someone who takes the blame for others, and that could be whether they willingly took the blame or perhaps they were falsely accused. So technically, they're like the fall guy, we would say. They're an innocent party, and we have sympathy for someone who's called the scapegoat. This, understandably causes us to gravitate towards the idea that Jesus might be the scapegoat, because here's someone who needs to have sympathy. They took the blame for us. However, the scapegoat is just the way that the Bible translates the phrase, most popular Bible translations. But the true phrase that's used in the original language is the goat for Azazel. In other translations, some say it's the goat that departs, referring to the fact that that goat is, departs into the wilderness. He's released into the wilderness. So the most important question is, who or what is Azazel. And a short explanation here is that Azazel is synonymous with Satan. And don't take my word for it. You got to check this out on your own. Some of you may already be aware of it. But we have books like from the Second Temple period, First Enoch. This is an important passage here. We're going to see this come up. I'll probably bring it up a couple of times in this whole series. This is First Enoch, chapter 10, verses 4 through 8. Says, and again the Lord said to Raphael, one of the angels, bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into darkness and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudel, and cast him therein. And again, right there, you can see this kind of has a similarity. It almost sounds like Leviticus 16, where you're casting a goat into the wilderness. Also, it looks a lot like Revelation 20. We've got Satan, bound for 1,000 years, but then released. And again, we'll be linking these together later on. Continuing on, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment, he shall be cast into the fire. This is something else that sounds familiar, something that may be happening to Satan at the end. And heal the earth, which the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague, and that all the children of men may not perish through all the secret things which the watchers have disclosed and have taught their sons. And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. So you have the book of Enoch saying that all sin is ascribed to Azazel. Clearly the Bible kind of points to the fact that Satan, all sin is ascribed to him. So the above passage in First Enoch is a parallel that links Leviticus 16 with Revelation 20, as I briefly said there. And in future episodes, we're going to look closer at these parallels, Leviticus 16, Revelation 19 to 20, and First Enoch. Now we have other extra biblical texts that point to Azazel here. This is known as the Apocalypse of Abraham. Got a few verses we're going to read here. It says, the fruit of the tree was like the appearance of a bunch of grapes on the vine, and behind the tree was standing something like a dragon in form. So we're talking about like the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, and we've got a dragon in form. We know that Satan, dragon, serpent of old, devil, but having hands and feet like a man's, on his back 6 wings on the right and 6 on the left, and he was holding the grapes of the tree and feeding them to the 2 whom I saw entwined with each other. And I said, who are these 2 entwined with each other? Or who is this between them? And what is the fruit which they are eating? Mighty One, eternal. And he said, this is the world of men. This is Adam. And this is their thought on earth. This is Eve. And he who is between them is the impiety of their behavior unto perdition, Azazel himself. So just as Satan was in the garden, you have the Apocalypse of Abraham affirming that Azazel was in the garden. So again, synonymous here. There are other texts that you can look at, extra biblical, but again, those are some of the basic ones. So now what does the New Testament say about Jesus and the Day of Atonement as we look at these sacrifices? Hebrews 13, this is verse 10 through 13, says, we have an altar from which those who serve the tabernacle have no right to eat, for the bodies of those animals whose blood is brought into the sanctuary by the high priest for sins are burned outside the camp. Therefore, Jesus also, that he might sanctify the people with his own blood, suffered outside the gate. Therefore, let us go forth to him outside the camp, bearing his reproach. So something to observe here. This passage clearly affirms that Jesus represented the sin offering, and it says that he suffered outside the gate. So the goat for Azazel did not suffer. The goat for Azazel was released into the wilderness. And my thought here is that if the Bible wanted us to link Jesus with a goat for Azazel, then this passage here in Hebrews would seemingly have been the best place to make that declaration, because it's clearly saying that Jesus, was the sin offering. So if Jesus is also supposed to be understood as the goat for Azazel, why not say it here in Hebrews? But I think what we have here is the fact that the Bible never makes the claim that Jesus fulfilled the role of the goat for Azazel. So just a few takeaways from today's episode. The scapegoat, as we said, is a misleading term. Again, it kind of sways us to lead toward thinking that Jesus might be the scapegoat because we might have sympathy for a scapegoat. But the actual term is the goat for Azazel, and Azazel is synonymous with Satan, according to the extra biblical literature we looked at. And again, we're going to look at other Bible passages in future episodes that are going to point to the same thing. So the New Testament never links Jesus with the goat for Azazel. So in closing, future episodes, we're going to make additional connections regarding the link between Azazel and Satan. And also future episodes, we're going to go back to the main premise for the whole Bible study series to make additional links to the fulfillment of the Day of Atonement in 70 AD. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. I have a feeling this episode might lead to more episodes just on this topic of the scapegoat itself. But until next time, contend earnestly for the faith which was once for all delivered to the saints, and God bless.